Hi folks, welcome to episode 9 of Business Planning Online here on Westlink TV. I'm Andrew Huffer and today we're focusing on measuring success. That's right, in today's episode we're going to go through 3 big things to help you in measuring the success of your business plan. Firstly, we're going to look at the value in terms of measuring the success of your business plan. Then we're going to look at what should be measured and how you should go about doing it. And finally, we're going to take you through how you should use that information so it can be utilised to ensure the ongoing success and sustainability of your CRC. So I've got a cracking episode today and I'm joined here today by Mr. John Denton. How you doing?
Yeah, good Andrew. Great to be here.
As always. And Roz, great to have you here on board again.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Ready for an action-packed episode?
Always.
Fabulous. Let's just do a quick recap from last week's episode. If you remember, we were joined by Lee Steele from the Pingelly CRC. Lee's also chair of the Association of Community Resource Centres here in WA. Lee helped us to develop a personnel plan, so we had each member's skills developed to their role within the CRC. Lee also took us through the value of having a risk management plan, making sure you knew what was coming up ahead and can plan for it. And finally, we also worked through a succession plan for your CRC to make sure that your business can continue to operate smoothly no matter who's there on board. So today, John, I'd like to hand over to you now to take us through measuring success, why we should do it. Can you take us away with that?
Why we should do it?
Yeah.
Well, by now you would have heard my mantra a few times on why you need to measure, and that is that I believe that if you can't measure it, then you can't improve it. So that's the overall philosophy, but we're going to look at 4 key areas now of why you measure your success. And the first one is provide evidence of value to funders. So let's have a bit of a chat about that. I mean, if people think of it like I'm going to talk about football here, a footy club. A footy club goes out to get sponsors and money in to be able to buy the players and have success on the field. And obviously the footy club then has to demonstrate the success to those funders so that they get their branding out there to as many people as they can. So, you know, it's justifying the funding for the sponsors. And I guess that's where you come in, Roz.
Most definitely, and I guess it's about having systems in place to make sure that you can provide that evidence back to your funding agency and bodies as well, to be able to clearly demonstrate outcomes for the funding. And I guess it's also to ensure that your budget's balanced and that your event or your activity is not running at a loss. And also to be aware that the person who's actually doing the activity may not be the one responsible. So to ensure you have those processes in place to overview, and just to make sure everything is how it's meant to be occurring.
Yeah, so obviously anyone who's contributing to the CRC in terms of funds and things like that want to say what the return on investment is, putting it into business terms. Another big reason for measuring success is for staff motivation. There's nothing motivates people more than kicking goals, seeing people get real benefit and wins out of what the CRC is doing. So in any business, it's a really big motivator for the staff, for the team, when you're able to demonstrate to them the success, you know, against the KPIs and things like that. So again, it's keeping people motivated, particularly when you've got a voluntary organisation, because they may not be getting paid commercial type wages, so they're in it for different reasons.
And I think it also helps there, John, that when you highlight what their role in that success was, it's particularly motivating for individuals there to say, you know, we've got this because you went that extra mile and did that. And I think people go out with that the halo starts to appear then, and it's just one of those great moments with your staff.
Yeah, nothing succeeds like success.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's very important for all the people involved in the CRC, not just the staff, but the board and volunteers as well. And then also measuring your success so that you can show your target markets how successful you are and the results that you're getting, because that will then foster referrals and PR, which will bring more people in, and the whole thing feeds on itself. So people like to deal with successful operations and successful organisations. So demonstrating, what you've done for people is a great way to get other people involved.
Yeah, and on that, I've seen that used really well, where people start to, or an organisation that does that well gets seen as the expert or the go-to group or the authority in the area, and that's, I think, an opportunity for CRCs to position themselves that way, as we're the authority here in, perhaps it's in bringing Westlink TV, or it could be in having video conferencing is a great example for CRCs. We're the go-to people in all of regional WA. Why would you go anywhere else?
Absolutely. It's
It's a
word of
really-
mouth marketing.
Yeah.
It's a really important factor in any project timeline, is to have that celebration of success at the completion of whatever activity. Often it's overlooked in a busy world, but it's very important.
You betcha.
Yeah, and sometimes the CRCs need to think a little bit about what that value is that they're providing to the market, in terms of sometimes there are spin-off benefits from what they do that are not necessarily what they set out to, so there are secondary benefits that don't always get picked up and recognised.
Yeah, and Lee mentioned that in the last episode.
That's
that
right.
They picked that up quite a bit at Pingelly, where we just started out to do this, but wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've got these people back in the workforce. We've got them contributing back into the community now. Lots of big changes. They're not vandalising the park anymore.
pride
Anybody
in-
vandalises that park, and look
That's
out.
right.
They're
Pride in their
strife.
civic places.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that all brings that word of mouth and extra business in.
Yep, for sure.
And of course, we measure as well in any operation, be it business or not for profit, to identify the gaps as well and look for opportunities to do other things. So when you set out with a business plan and you've set your projects and goals down and your targets and your budgets, then another reason why you measure is so that you can identify any gaps where you're falling behind in some activities, and also to see opportunities that weren't seen at the beginning of the planning process. So other things often come up that turn into being an opportunity. And if there are gaps, then at your regular board meetings you need to be discussing those and addressing them and working out how you can make up that difference and get back on track. So we've covered some really good reasons about why you measure your success. So that's the why. Now, Andrew, how about you tell us about how we go about it?
So, in simple terms, we've got to be really clear on what's information we're going to collect and how we're going to go about it. And as Ros alluded to earlier, perhaps who's going to be responsible for doing this. And I think once you've got that in clear and on paper and documented, then it makes the whole process a lot easier. But there's sometimes a few things that are actually right in front of you that you could quite easily measure that would provide a lot of benefit for both you, your organisation, your funders, as well as your target market. And the first one I'm suggesting you should be thinking about using is actually your mission statement. So that's something you've already got in place, and it's something that's meant to be directing the CRC. So it's something you should be measuring, and I think that's a big gap for a lot of organisations. They're just not doing it. It's there, but it's kind of fluffy, but nothing that really directs them. So I reckon this is a real opportunity for people just to grab that and say, all right, this is where we're going. We're going to tell you how far we got with it.
Yeah, they're very busy doing and not so focused on the purpose and the direction.
Exactly. And if you look at, say, this mission statement, which came out of one of the Wheatbelt CRCs, I think you get some pretty good measures here on how much economic development has occurred in the community, what has happened in terms of social development, and how is it related to the training that we've delivered in the office services. So I think from a CRC perspective, you could go back and say, well, we've actually done this, this and this is a difference we've made to our community. And my view is that would be really powerful to do that. And I think it would certainly help stand up to any scrutiny coming from outside, either from your funders or from the media, to say, well, hang on, this is what's going here. What's your problem? Words to that effect.
Yeah.
Probably not holding a baseball bat or something like that at the time.
Yeah.
But I can lend one out if you want one anytime.
But the mission statement is your reason for being. It's why
You got
the
it.
CRC exists and how it goes about achieving its vision. And so again, it's important to measure that you're on track. It's having that target, as you see in the diagram there, and making sure that you're on track to achieve it.
Yep. The other one, and I'm on a bit of a rant already today, it doesn't take long, does it? Is I think to look at your business objectives. They're another one that's right in your face. You've already done them. They're a great way to measure your success. And here we've got three that we've developed as examples, and you've seen them before. But these will be quite easy ways to measure and prove back to your funders that, yep, we're delivering the goods here. And I think you'd also get a lot of comfort and confidence from both staff and your local community if you're able to say in that second objective that our services are being utilised by 60% of local businesses here, and we've done it in this time frame. I reckon that would carry a lot of weight, a lot of credibility, and it would show to your local community what value you're delivering.
Yeah, your relevance.
So to me, a lot of it is just putting some of those measures in place that, yep, we're doing it. Just keep a register of which local businesses use you, how much, what for, that type of thing, and you're off and running. I don't think it's too hard to do.
No, it's just like any business, you need to have your goals and your objectives in delivering your service to your clients and measuring how effective you're being at that. So, and the thing about business objectives is like this, that because they're very specific and measurable, then it's much easier to show how you're going against your target. And so the business side of it is pretty easy to measure.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you get to the less tangible things that you need a little bit more help sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So the more tangible, the better off you are.
Yes, that's right. I'm a very tangible person.
I know, I can poke you, yep, and you're real. I've been wanting to do that for 9 episodes now.
It's my engineering background. You see, data and facts and statistics you can measure. It's very easy, and every business has those.
Yep.
But when you start looking at the effect on the community and the regional economy and things like that, then you're starting to, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I guess from my perspective, and I think there's probably a couple of areas you could have a look at in terms of thinking maybe some broad categories, and my understanding this is perhaps where DRD may be going to in the future, is thinking about collecting information that affects social outcomes in your community, or collecting information that affects business outcomes in the community, or collecting information that impacts on economic growth. And even just thinking back to that mission statement we had before, that mission statement if they looked at each of those 3 categories, it could say, yep, and just collect data around there.
Definitely, because with the new funding model now morphing into the fee-for-service structure, they need to address all those areas and how they assist, support and resource their community with those various codes.
And there's a lot of other funding bodies outside of DRD who would be interested in those outcomes as well. There's the Foundation for Regional and Rural Renewal, would be a classic fit, wanting to know how you're delivering on those sort of things. So I think it makes a lot of sense to be being able to prove that you're delivering those sort of outcomes to other bodies.
Okay.
I've got a couple of other rants here to go on with.
No?
My first rant, it's probably about my 4th rant for today, is avoid using input-focused measures. And the classic one you'll hear in the health sector is we've put this amount of money into the hospitals this year, or we've put this amount of beds into the hospital system, and it doesn't really tell me what's happened as a result. So to me, my rant is about, it's great to tell us what the inputs are, but what's the outcome that's been achieved as a result? So I think that's a really important area to be focusing on.
And that sort of links back to what you've mentioned earlier, not so much what a CRC does, but what the benefits are to the user and how they can entice the customer, the clientele.
For sure,
there.
For sure. John, do you have any other thoughts on collection methods, on ideas for how people should go about collecting data?
Yes, obviously, as I said before, with the business measures, things like financial and statistics and data,
Yep.
it's all fairly straightforward because they're things you should be doing as part of your corporate governance anyway. But with some of with the outcomes, as we were saying, it's really about what outcomes are being achieved. Then you need to go out to the community and ask, in a lot of cases, and get feedback. So running surveys is a great way to get feedback. And at events, catch people whilst they're actually at the event and ask them there. Don't try and collect the data later. And I think, Ros, your little rant on this one is that collection needs to be on a regular basis and systemised and done consistently over a period of time. And again, in business, the reason that you collect data and information over a period of time consistently is so that you can see trends. You can see whether you're improving or declining, and
Yep.
where you need to make some changes. So I'll talk in a little while about continuous improvement.
And I think it needs to be realistic about what you hope to achieve as well. So you can measure your outcomes against meaningful your data. You not set unrealistic expectations for your agency and your community. Yeah.
Yeah, social media is another good way to measure your effectiveness as well, in that if you encourage people to put comments onto your feedback, onto your Facebook page for the CRC, then that's a good way of getting feedback. And again, it helps to promote the CRC, it helps to interact with the community, and the benefits are just, enormous. On the website as well, you can put feedback forms on the website and get people to give you feedback that way. People who walk into the CRC, there's several different ways. Any other ways come to mind?
Yeah, I think just picking up from the events issue, when we did some of the CRC marketing workshops, the things we've always encouraged there is the testimonials that you're often a fan of, and some can be written, but I think you can also get some on camera pretty easily now with these things called smartphones or something like that. And
Yep.
just grab somebody aside, find a quiet spot, because the main thing you need to have is good audio. Get a quick 30-second snapshot. What did you think of the event? What stood out to you? What do you think you'll do as a result? 3 questions done. And it looks great. You can use it so many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think those spin-off events that might fall out of a particular project as well, so document that sort of time frame, that timeline, like Lee mentioned with their particular project, this is how it first commenced, and then these other different variables also achieve different outcomes.
Yeah, and look at, if you're working with local businesses, then you can look at, if you're doing joint ventures or co-creation type exercises with local businesses, then measure the effect that it has on the business and the benefit that it has back to those businesses as well. They're all good measurable outcomes.
Yeah. And often a simple measure is a before and after type measure of what were you doing before you got involved in the program, what are you doing now that the program's finished, what are you doing that's different, and what benefits it's had to the business.
Okay.
So I think we've talked a lot about sort of the what to collect and how to collect it. It's probably important to think about what should we do with the information collected.
Oh, you mean we're going to use it?
Well, just putting it out there. Crazy talk, I know.
Okay, yes, good point. And of course, apart from the justifying your outcomes for your funders and sponsors, people like that, there's lots of other things that you can do with the information. So regular staff meetings, and there I put the emphasis on regular, because again, it's, like we've said before, getting measurable results and showing results is a great way to motivate your staff. But if they don't know about it and they don't know what's happening, then it's not going to work. So set up a regular time to meet with your staff. Maybe it's fortnightly, maybe you start off weekly and then go to fortnightly, but make it a regular event so that people look forward to it. And communicate the results and the wins, get feedback from them as well. And make it a really positive, thing that people look forward to coming along to.
Well, it starts becoming part of the process, not just an activity you might do if there's an incident or concern. Yeah.
And the thing I like about that idea is that it means you're not waiting till, say, 6 months through a project or towards the end just to suddenly, we better start talking about what we're doing here. It's a live, ongoing process. So that's the thing I really like about it. It's happening sooner rather than later and regularly. It's great.
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the continuous improvement part, and that's absolutely right. And again, you can all brief each other on what's happening in the CRC coming up and what needs to be done to prepare as well, so you're better prepared for things that are coming up. So regular staff meetings is a great way to go. And the other one, which we've touched on as well, but through PR, getting PR for the CRC to promote the CRC's services. So getting into the local media, doing interviews with your trusted journalists, and or getting onto the TV. The media are always looking for stories. So if the CRC can come up with a good outcome, good result story, then they should be contacting the media and getting the message out there.
It's a really important point because there's actually less and less journalists employed in the media now, so they're looking for somebody to do the work for them. So I think...
And I guess it's about being aware of the particular angle or interest that your media in your region is generally coming from, and obviously flavouring your story, your activity in that vein as well.
And there's ways that you can write up media releases and things like that. You can get training on that, and it can be very, very effective.
You bet.
And of course then you've got the website, and you've got your social media, your Facebook page and e-newsletters and all those sort of things that you put out as well. So give the community and give your stakeholders feedback all the time on the wins that the CRC is having. And of course things that are coming up as well. And then of course we get back to basics here. You know, it's connecting the wins that you're having with the DRD outcomes. Anything to say on that, Ros, before I have another little rant?
I guess they've got them all defined in their business plan, so they would just align them back to those objectives that they hope to achieve, and they can rate them accordingly. Yes.
Yeah. So that's always got to be front of mind as well. And then, as I said before, if you can measure it and you're collecting information, then you can continue to improve. But I just want to say as well about information and not-for-profit type organisations generally, that some of them have an attitude problem with making money.
Ooh, I wonder where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I've never had an attitude problem with
controversy.
making money. But I've worked on lots of not-for-profit boards, everything from business associations to exchange student organisations and personal development organisations, the whole gamut, through to now on small business centre boards. And some boards have a mentality of poverty. It's like we're not for profit, so profit and making money is a bad term for them. And I tried to change the culture of the board when I'm on a board to get it around to, no, let's make money, let's find ways for making money. You know, let's provide fee-for-service type services, because profit's not a dirty word. If the more money we make, the more people we can help. It's not like we're making that money to put in our own pockets or for the board to take away. It's to put back into the organisation so that we can provide better services, bigger services, and help more people.
It just strengthens the longevity of the project and the centre. And I mean, there's not shareholders that are receiving a dividend. So there's just, it seems to be okay in business sense, or people somehow accept it. But when, like you say, when it's defined as a not-for-profit agency, often there can be that perception, oh my goodness, we're not in the business of making money. But they really need to focus that, how can we continue to build and make our activity a sustainable one for our community.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, the CR wants to be sustainable for the long term, because if you don't survive yourself, then you're not going to help anybody else, are you? So it's about long-term sustainability.
Yep.
And helping more and more people. So I just wanted to get that in.
And I think it's also, if you put a value on it, then you actually convey that indirectly to your clientele. So just be really aware of what message you might be putting out there.
Yeah, and making sure it's a united message that goes right through the CRC, that this is what we're all about, this is what we do, and this is the level we operate at, so that everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with providing or charging for a service, and people see value in it then as well. So quite often you'll get more people buy into something if you charge for it than if you give it for free.
And I think I know we touched on it in an early episode about when you charge, making sure that's a realistic charge and that you've factored in all those incidentals, the staffing, insurance, etc., the cost of equipment.
So to cover all the hidden costs.
That's right, yeah. So you're not essentially subsidising whatever activity process that you're delivering.
So let me go back to the review process. Again, what to do with the information. So it's in order to create a continuous improvement model. Now this is a diagram you'll find in pretty much any book on quality assurance or quality control or continuous improvement. And what it shows is that by reviewing the information, you know what your performance is at the moment. So it's sometimes referred to as the plan, do, check, act model. So you do your plan, in this case your business plan, you plan your objectives and your goals, and then you do them. So you go out there and start doing the things to achieve those plans and goals. But on a regular, consistent basis, you need to be checking how you're going. So are we on track to achieve those goals? Are there any gaps? And then, so if the first time you check, say you're getting 80% of, your goals achieved, then you can say, well, okay, the systems and processes and how we're operating at the moment is giving us 80%. What do we need to do to get it to 100%? So you come up with some more actions and some changes. That's the act part. So you take action, make the changes, review your plan, and then you start again and do again. And then you go around, have your regular review, and this time you might be doing 85%. So you've gone up one of those little steps. And it's all about putting the systems and processes in place to keep you at that level. And then when you make the changes, you go up a bit more. I understand what I'm saying. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Don't have to be an engineer to understand, John.
Oh,
I get
good.
that, yeah.
Good. Yeah, so it's all about getting that continuous improvement, doing the continuous reviews and using it to get your goals achieved.
Yeah, and to me, it's not just putting it on cruise control and hope something happens, and by the end of everything, it'll all be okay, and let's just do the same thing again. You're not going to survive doing that.
No, and the plan, do, check, act model works beautifully with boards, because every time you have a board meeting, you can do your review and see what's working, and then make some decisions, decide what changes to make, and go on to the next level.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And some good questions I've heard people use in those sort of review processes are just 3 steps is what, so what, now what? So what do we do? So what does that mean to the organisation? Now what are we going to do next? So 3 simple questions, really powerful when you go through them and start to dissect them a bit.
Yep, brilliant. So just going back to the funders and sponsors as well, if they see you've got a process in place for doing this kind of quality assurance and quality control, then they're much more likely to continue to fund the organisation and put money in and support you. So I think that's about it for this episode, Andrew.
I reckon it's been a cracker, to be honest. Some really valuable stuff in there, and I think it's sort of the icing on the cake for a business plan is to have those measures in place and making sure that everyone's really clear on what has to be measured, they understand who's going to do what, and then go out and demonstrate its value. And that's really where we've been focusing today, is to be able to highlight the value of actually having success measures in your business planning process, being really clear on what it is you're going to measure and how you're going to go about it and who's going to be responsible for it. I think it's one of the critical things. And then how you're going to use that information, which John has just talked about now. So coming up, we're into the home straight. In fact, I think we've rounded the bend. We're going to be working with you to look at all 9 episodes that we've brought together so far and look at what are the critical elements that you need to take forward into your business plan to make sure that you've got a sustainable CRC and you've got longevity from here on. So it's been wonderful having you again on board in the audience. John, always been fantastic. Really enjoyed what you had to offer today.
Thank you, Andrew.
And thanks again, Ros, for your insights and the value you provide. It's been a wonderful day, and I'm really looking forward to our next episode where we're just bringing it all together.
Should be fantastic.
You betcha. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you next week.